Close your eyes. Imagine for a minute a time in the past when you were truly happy. When things seemed to align in place and nothing could go wrong. It's an interesting visual, isn't it? How everything seems to change in the blink of an eye. It can all be changed with an argument, or a new task, or even something simple as going to the store for a video game. On a particular day like no other, two friends, Gabe and Lyle, decided to cruise around their city, taking their weekend off from school to make the most of their lives. With the stress of finals slowly backing off and their minds set on college for the future, they took the time to enjoy the sun. Driving around in Gabe's SUV, they stopped at a local mall in their area, one that had particularly been busy that time of day. The sun was bright, piercing down into the boys' skins as they got out of the car, while shutting the doors behind them. "What do you think? We hit the food court and then just fuck around?" Lyle asked, turning to the other. His bright blonde hair that had been pushed back, cut neatly on the sides, blew in the wind as he waited for a response from the other. Today he was wearing a striped button-up with beige and brown to color in the lines. For bottoms he had on some cargo shorts and tennis shoes. Lyle's companion Gabe was similar yet uniquely different in fashion. Chestnut brown hair covered down to his neck, parted down the middle of his head. He had on a beige plain shirt with some cargo pants for bottoms, yet sporting very similar looking tennis shoes that had a red and black design on them. "I mean, yeah, what else is there to do really?" Gabe replied back, his voice a bit deeper than his cohorts. Both of the boys chuckled a bit, walking from their car and through the parking lot. In the distance stood the mall building. An arch stood tall above them with beautiful colors lining it up and down. There were a few set of glass doors where many people were coming and going, most of them dressed in different types of streetwear. Some of the mall goers around them looked around their age, most of them in groups of friends or with family. Gabe and Lyle walked through the set of double glass doors, looking around at the open space before them. Shops lined the walls, the lit up names above them standing tall as if inviting the boys inside. Though today they weren't interested in those, deciding to head deeper into the mall and toward the escalators. They rushed past some of the others, some of the people on the escalators giving them dirty looks as they raced each other. Finally, they had reached the top, making it to their destination which they had set before. Lyle, who had managed to beat his friend, turned around and laughed. "You got your ass beat, man." His voice was slightly covered by some heavy breathing. "Man, come on. I had some slow granny in my way." Nah, there isn't coming back from any of that now." Lyle placed his arm around Gabe, immediately getting shoved off while laughing. Deciding that they had enough fun there, they moved toward one of the food shops. The both of them stopped, taking some time to order food and sitting down at one of the tables that were set up. "So, how's things been? You didn't say much in your messages," Lyle asked, and taking a big bite from his chicken sandwich. "Huh? Like I said, man, they've been alright, just kind of making my rounds, Don't give me that shit, man. I know you, alright? Like, you were always talking about Jenny. What happened to you and her? You both break up or something?" Gabe sat in silence for a few seconds, taking a small bite from his sandwich before finally gaining the courage to answer. "Not that, just on a bit of a break right now." The boy across from him rolled his head back, hitting his open palm onto the table a few times while letting out a groan. To his confusion, Gabe lifted his head slightly, cocking a brow. "Oh man, come on. You two were like a match made in, well, I was gonna say heaven, but you both were really like..." And seeing his friend's look of shock on his face, he held up both of his hands. "Look, what I'm trying to say is that you two were practically made for each other. What happened?" Before replying, the boy gave a sigh, looking around at all the other tables and the people sitting at them. It seemed the uncomfortable nature was finally starting to kick in for him, giving a shrug to go along with his sigh. "I don't know, we both just kind of drifted naturally, I guess, and she got busy, and then I got busy, and we started arguing a lot, and we just decided maybe that we need to figure some things apart, Shit. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Look, if you need anything, it's fine. I'd rather not talk about it anyways. I just need some time out." The boys could do nothing but smile now as Lyle lightly punched his friend in the shoulder, the both of them laughing together. And after finishing their food, they left the food court to go walk around the area, pursuing some of the other stores. They first stopped at a Hot Topic, Gabe buying himself some new clothes while Lyle gawked and looked around. Next was Spencer's, to which they began to laugh and mess around with each other before getting threatened to get kicked out. Soon they had done everything they wanted to do, reminiscing on old memories while walking around the mall area. It had been some time since they originally entered the building, having taken a few hours just to do whatever they wanted to. It had seemed now that they were ready to leave, but not before stumbling across one store that they hadn't seen before. Before them stood a retro gaming store that sold old consoles, games, and everything galore. "Ah, way, man! I've been looking for a place like this," Lyle said, pulling the other inside with him. Gabe, who was now following along, looked all around the store, noticing a lone worker on his phone at the register. His buddy began to look at all the old consoles they had in display cases, some N64s, NESs, and even a Sega Saturn. It stuck out to the both of them quite a bit at just how much they had on sale here, Lyle deciding to make his way up to the counter. Excuse me, sir, I was actually wondering something. How much are you selling that, Sega Saturn back there for?" He pointed to the display case, the worker looking up from his phone and giving a shrug. About 125 with the cords and, one controller. But you gotta buy memory cards separately. The worker replied with a slight catch in his throat. "And how much would that be?" "Only about $8. He turned back to his friend now, giving him a big smile while returning to him. The both of them walked over to a different case, one that was lined with old Saturn games. A lot of them seemed to bore the boy, scratching his head while looking at all of them, until one game in particular caught his attention. It was a Sonic racing game, Sonic R to be exact, to which Lyle chuckled to himself and pointed at it. "That's it, Gabe, that's the one." "Are you sure? I mean, no offense, but the controls were kind of vast if I can remember correctly, and not to mention, the game doesn't have a ton of replay value." "Oh my god, it's not about that, man. It's kind of just, for the nostalgia factor, something to bring out the dorm we're going to be living at in." With a shrug and a sigh, Lyle walked himself back over to the counter, talking with the worker once again who walked in the back. He grabbed a copy of the game and a Sega Saturn that was wrapped up for protection. Once he paid the man, he put his items into a bag, the two boys walking out of the mall without looking back at the store. "So you spent a little over $200 for that. Are you sure that you're even going to play that?" Gabe asked, turning his head over. "Hey, when you were buying all those shitty band t-shirts, I didn't say anything. But when I buy one console," he replied while throwing his hands up in exaggeration. Both of them laughed it off and began to walk towards the car, getting inside and driving away from the mall. In the rearview mirror, the mall got smaller and smaller and smaller, until finally it couldn't be seen anymore. The boys stayed mostly silent on the way home, just listening to music in the car to keep them company. While driving back, they decided to grab themselves some food to eat before finally making it to their destination. When they arrived in the driveway, they both stepped out of the car, Lyle looking over to his friend. "It's been a bit since I've actually been able to stay over at your house." "Well, yeah, my parents are gone for the weekend, so I've got the whole place to myself." "Shit, really? We should totally try setting this up in the living room." With an enthusiastic smile, he grabbed the Sega Saturn from the floorboards, holding it up to Gabe. He didn't have the energy to protest, instead just locking the car and leading them into the house. Inside was an office on the right, a living room right down the hall, and a set of stairs near that. While admiring the house, Gabe turned around to him, grabbing at the bag that was now in his hand. "Alright, ground rules. Don't break anything, don't touch anything in that office, and, this right here, it has to go back to you tomorrow." Alright, I got it. Now come on, I'm dying to hook this up, and eat some of our food, obviously. The friends gathered their things and sat them down in the living room, watching Lyle set up the Saturn to the big screen TV that was hung on the wall. After about 10 minutes, he turned it on, watching as the console booted up for them to play. He grabbed the Sonic R case from within the bag, grinning at his friend while placing the disc inside and shutting it once again. After about a minute, the game loaded up, both of them seeing the main title with the titular characters on the screen. Gabe sighed and sunk into his seat a bit, watching his friend begin to mess around with the controller. He picked out Sonic for his racer, picking one of the only stages that were available to him at the moment, that being Resort Island. And as the game actually loaded in, the friends looked to each other slowly. I don't remember the graphics really looking like this," Gabe said while chuckling, sipping from his drink. "Or the controls being this bad. I mean, seriously, I just keep bumping into walls. Shit!" That's when the feed was cut. The game turned off for a few seconds as the boys turned to each other. At first, they chalked it up to the console being too old, until the game feed returned back, although this time it was on the main menu, with the sprite of the Tails doll being plastered on the screen. What the fuck? Lyle asked while moving toward the console, clicking the power button. You know, old CDs like that tend to get scratched up over time, man. The game's probably being read wrong. After taking the disc out, he put it on his shirt, wiping any smudges that may have been on the disc before putting it back inside, taking a few seconds for the console to load back up the game. And once it did, everything seemed to be back to normal. The both of them continued playing the game for what seemed like a few hours. It was the middle of the afternoon now, one of the boys playing the game while the other sat on his phone. He stared longingly into it, as if he was trying to find something that he had lost some time ago. His friend turned to him, nudging his shoulder. "You still waiting on a text?" Lyle asked a bit cheekily. "I don't know, man. You know, some days I just wish she would text me, telling me that she wants things to go back to the way they were, you know?" Desperation hung onto each letter of every word. I know. Well, listen, how about you play the game for a bit? You know, my hands are kind of cramping up. Gabe sighed while being handed the controller, looking at the screen now where most of the characters had been unlocked. He was familiar with what he needed to do, staring at the Supersonic character in particular for quite a bit of time. After selecting his character, he went on to Radical City, replaying the level over and over and over again. Turning his head over confused now, his friend began to pipe up. "Why do you keep replaying this stage? I mean, it's not bad by any means, but at least I thought..." "Hold on. You'll see." The two looked at the TV intently, staring into the different colors blasted on the screen as the yellow blur moved all around the stage. It seemed that he was collecting some coins, grabbing them all one by one, until finally making it to the end of the stage. Lyle was about to ask something again, only to turn back to the screen and see that yet he was in another race already. However, instead of 3 different CPUs, it was just one. A new character. The Tails doll. Seriously? This is who you were after? Come on, man. If you're gonna get a shitty old game, you should at least 100% it. You know what? Fair enough, I guess. The boy shrugged and leaned deeper into the couch, watching Gabe continue to play the game. For some time, he toyed with the CPU, running a couple of laps around it before stopping idly in the middle of the stage. He turned to his friend, and the two began to talk while letting the timer continue, having the confidence boosted, figuring that they could take a small break before finishing it out. Though before they knew it, the Tails doll had come right up on them, Lyle smacking Gabe's arm to continue the race. But it was too late. He lost, staring in shock at the screen now and sinking into the couch. "There's no fucking way. You just lost with the best character in the game." "Okay, in my defense, you distracted me. You just lost with the best character in the entire game. Let that sink in. Alright, you know what? Fuck it." In a moment of desperation and anger, he attempted to play the stage again, but once it was selected, the screen went to black. Confused, Gabe walked over to the system to power it off and back on, just like before. But it was to no avail. He turned his head around, looking at his friend confused to get some sort of answer out of him, though he noticed that Lyle wasn't confused like him, but rather shocked by something. Cocking his brow, he turned his head back to the TV, noticing now that it had changed to a still image. Tails doll loomed in frame, standing larger than he had in the game. And he was standing over the corpse of Sonic the Hedgehog, the once blue blur laid on the checkered ground, making both of the boys grimace in horror. Jesus Christ, this is why you don't buy shitty old games from suspicious stores," Gabe yelled out. With a thrust, he unplugged the console, allowing the image to finally be turned off as he set the Sega Saturn to the side. Both boys sighed as Gabe continued to move around, plugging something else in now to Lyle's confusion. "What are you doing now? Don't tell me you're plugging that thing in again." "No, I'm plugging in my PlayStation." A sense of relief washed over his friend as he stood up from the couch, stretching his limbs and walking toward the kitchen. Opening up the dark gray fridge with the silver handle, he looked around inside. Noticing that there was some takeout, he turned around to his buddy, who was still working on setting up the console. "Hey, you got some takeout in here. Is it cool if I have it?" "Huh?" With confusion in his voice, he turned around, and once he noticed him looking in the fridge, he shrugged. "Sure, I don't mind." "Sick." After heating up the food in the microwave, he sat back down on the couch, watching Gabe stand up and sit next to him while having a white controller in his hand. The game on the TV was a multiplayer shooter. Different types of characters moved around on the screen as the two friends wasted the time away. However, it didn't take long for the mood to change. both of them hearing a doorbell sound throughout the house. As it sounded off, the both of them looked toward each other, shrugging and sitting up. One by one, they turned their heads towards the front door, slowly pushing off of the couch and moving toward it. Their hearts sank heavy. In sync, they were both confused and worrisome about what could be at the door. Lyle knew his friend hadn't invited anybody over, and neither had he. Gabe knew he wasn't expecting anybody, delivery or otherwise. So, they both wondered, what exactly could be at the door? Their questions and guesses would be answered in just a short time now. Gabe swinging open the door to be met with nothing. Unease filled their bodies, the boy in front looking around before finally noticing something at his feet. On the porch sat the Tails doll, as if he was ripped straight from the game he came from. His look of confusion turned to horror as he slammed it shut, locking it and turning back to his friend who held the same look. They didn't know what to say for some time, before Gabe moved his friend away from the front of the house. Okay, so, I don't know if someone's playing some sick fucking joke on us, but right now we're moving away from that door and making sure we lock the rest of the doors and the windows. Without any further hesitation, they both split up around the house, not wasting any time in locking up any entryway they could find. The minutes began to pass, heavy footsteps moving up and down the stairs, before finally reconvening in the living room together. All the downstairs windows and doors are locked, Lyle said, breathing heavily. Same with the upstairs one. Hey, you don't think that, what, the Tails doll came from the game and is now trying to kill us? Like he did the Supersonic in the game? No, God, no. But I definitely think that sketchy dude who worked at the store is messing with us. Or at least some punk kids, and I'm not taking any chances. With nothing left to say, the blonde-headed boy sat down on the couch again, his friend following suit before loading back up the game he was playing. However, Lyle couldn't sit easily, having a gnawing feeling at the back of his skull. It was as if something was watching him, and he couldn't quite put a pin on where it was coming from. Though, he decided to lean in a bit, looking at the television screen. And that's when he noticed it. He saw it through the black, there looming behind him. And the both of them was the Tails doll. He hovered ominously as if he was watching the two boys intently, like prey. Gabe, he whispered, don't look toward me. Keep facing forward. But he's here. Every motor function in his body stopped. His fingers no longer moved on the controller. His eyes pierced the screen in front of him without blinking. His leg no longer bounced. Seeing it now, he saw the doll looming behind them, watching, stalking. He wanted to scream. He wanted to move. He wanted to get out of the situation desperately, but he couldn't. How was this happening? A scene right out of a horror movie playing right before their eyes. It terrified the brown-haired boy. The silence went on for what seemed like hours, the game no longer continuing without his input, as there seemed to be a standoff of sorts happening like a Wild West. Until it could no longer continue, both of the boys jumped up from the couch and moved out of the way. As soon as they moved, the doll lunged itself forward, slamming into the TV, which made it shatter upon impact. Grabbing onto his friend now, Lyle picked him up, rushing him up the stairs as the doll recuperated itself. They ran into his bedroom and shut the door, locking it back just in time as the doll began to bang on it. It seemed more machine than anything, the boys allowing themselves time to breathe while looking around the room. Lyle grabbed onto Gabe's guitar, the latter looking over to his friend while opening up the window. What are you doing? What's it look like I'm doing? You are not going to fight that thing. This isn't some action hero bullshit. You're coming with me. Gabe tried to grab onto his friend's shoulder, only to be shrugged off. Best case scenario if we go together is that we make it out of the house. Just then, the doll launches itself out the window and kills us both. At least this way, the son of a bitch will be too focused on me and you can get out of here. Lyle, I'm not leaving you. He persisted, standing his ground before being pushed over toward the window. Grabbing onto the ledge, he looked over, his eyes meeting Lyle's. Look, man, I love you to death, but if you don't get out of this room right now, then I'm going to push you out. A sadness washed over him, like waves crashing onto the beach. He wanted to cry, but he held his tears back as much as he could while hopping onto the window ledge. Moving his body over to the side, he looked at his friend. That was when the door room busted open, the doll staring straight ahead at Lyle. He took a swing with the guitar instantly, not hesitating for a single second. It slammed against the wall, hitting the floor for a second before rising again. Rushing toward the boy once more, he took another swing, only to miss and be sent straight into the wall behind him. Pieces of the guitar went flying across the room as the doll hit it against the floor, letting it be shattered as if it was plastic. Adrenaline kicked into the boy's body, setting up to resume the fight. But it was too late now. The doll moved forward and began to latch onto him. Moving all around his body, it scratched, clawed, pulled, and stabbed at any part it could get its claws on. In just mere minutes, the boy was left a bloody mess on the floor, gasping for air and crawling toward the door. The Tails doll loomed above him now, watching him try to leave before slowly succumbing to his wounds. Seconds passed before it whipped its body around, facing the open window now and moving toward it. Though the other boy was already gone, having made his way down the street and away from the house. He didn't look back, running away that day with tears welling in his eyes. Stopping to look for even a second would ensure his demise, and the only way to make sure his friend wouldn't die in vain was to keep running. Sometime later, he figured that he had made it far enough, stopping to catch his breath while leaning against a light pole now. Gabe pulled out his phone from within his pocket, wasting no time in dialing the police, placing the phone up to his ear and letting it ring. The next few weeks were hard on the boy, having to lie to the police and say that a wild animal had managed to get in the house. He told them that the animal was rummaging around in the upstairs bedroom, and when they found it, Lyle had been attacked. Gabe took off down the street and did his best to call the police, but it had already been too late to save his best friend. As for the copy of Sonic R and the Sega Saturn along with it, on that day he took it outside. Placing it onto the ground, he looked upon it with malice. The sadness had long been since covered with hate, pouring all his rage into destroying the cursed game. He slammed his foot onto it multiple times, watching bits and pieces of plastic splinter off into different directions. But that didn't stop him. He continued to hit it again, and again, and again, until it was finally gone and dusted. With the pieces left over, he gathered them all and placed them onto a grill, pouring every ounce of lighter fluid he had in the bottle onto it. Once it was drained, he tossed it to the side, grabbing a matchbox and pulling it out. The small wooden stick between his fingers gave him a sense of power in the situation. It was mere retribution for the curse that had been placed upon him, setting it free now as he lit and tossed the match into the grill. He closed the lid and let the fire engulf the pieces, not even giving it a second look and turning away from it now. He wanted comfort, but instead had something taken from him. The fire that used to comfort him when he was a small boy now enraged him. It was something he couldn't replace, and now that his only good friend had been taken from him, he sat on the backyard porch and watched the day turn to night. Memories flashed of that day, and with each one that passed, he placed them further and further into the back of his mind, letting them burn with the curse. Because to him, he would stop at nothing, always moving, to get rid of every piece of the Tails doll curse.